Hey, it's David. So I know it's been a couple weeks. In fact, I think it's been a full month since the last episode. That's not what I planned to do. I wasn't looking to take an extended break or anything like that. Just kind of the way things turned out. Of course, as I contemplate more and more about the things I want to do and don't want to do, a big part of that is effort to reward ratio. It's like, do I feel like I'm getting the type of reward I'm looking for? And reward isn't always audience. It isn't always following. It isn't always money. There are other reasons for doing things. And I honestly think I like having a soapbox. I like being able to preach, even if it's to a crowd of few or not many. It does something for me. And that's a form of reward that this podcast has afforded me. I don't look at the numbers much. I do know that there's really not a ton of people listening, but it's just the way things go sometimes. I've gone through some major transitions. And of course, really where the audience is at least for me right now, is Spark Infinity, which continues to grow. And we're up to 1,500 members in the Facebook group. So it's not always growing at exactly the rate I would love to see it. But bottom line, it's still growing. And it continues to afford me that opportunity of mic stage audience and being able to give that away to others. That's probably the coolest part about the whole thing, being able to invite people into that world and giving them a mic stage and audience to share their message from. Being in that conversation about what I want to do and don't want to do, this whole idea of stillness has kind of arrived in my life, and I didn't plan for it. I didn't think it would become a theme, and gradually it has. I got a text from my sister, and she sent me a video about stillness for creatives, and that kind of reminded me how important it is and how little of that we actually have in our lives. People don't stop to do much of anything nowadays, let alone like just think and reflect, or maybe not even think and reflect, but just stare off into the distance in the middle of nature, not really thinking anything. And that time can be so valuable. And it's quite possible that I'm personally needing a little bit of that right now. It's not like I'm burnt out, but I have been feeling a little bit tired. Haven't been getting quite the quality sleep that I've been wanting to this year. And I guess if there's any takeaway, or really the big realization, is things that I was doing previously, or really the rate at which I was working and insisted on being productive and being increasingly more productive and accomplishing more and doing more, ultimately I realized was kind of coming from a place of survival. I probably would not have known it at the time. I probably would not have thought of it. I would not have resembled that comment whatsoever. I would have just thought to myself, well, that's ridiculous. I'm just doing what I'm meant to do. And how else am I supposed to accomplish? And how else am I supposed to do what I'm meant to do? And now that I have a contract in big tech that's lasted over a year, several promotions later, I know nothing's secure in this world. But for the immediate future, I think this is still going to be one of my mainstays. It's treated me so well, and I think I'm just not used to it. It's only barely been a year since I started, and I haven't felt this kind of peace. I haven't felt this kind of security or stability in a very, very long time. And, life was chaotic, and it was what it was. And I don't know all the reasons, but if I were to take responsibility, I suppose it had something to do with my choices. That's a tough one for me right now, but maybe I'll begin to comprehend it through more thinking and reflection, because it didn't feel like it felt out of control, really. And it didn't feel like it was all due to the choices I had made or hadn't made along the way. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have to make choices out of survival or just pure survival anymore. I have a foundation to stand on. I can be far choosier. Like, I don't have to say yes to every paid opportunity in my inbox anymore. And believe me, there are some coming in. May not be a lot and may not amount to a lot, but that's what has me thinking too. I'm like, do I really want to take an opportunity that pays less than a certain amount? I don't know what that amount would be right now, but I'm kind of trying to start to think about what's my minimum. How much is a post on Instagram worth? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not worth a lot. And maybe getting paid a little bit of money for that is actually a good thing. I'll have to spend a little more time thinking about that. But right now I'm like, I don't know, compared to the opportunities I got, that's not that great. Do I really want to put the time and energy into developing something just for $10 or $20 or $30 or whatever it is? But again, that kind of goes back to what are your expectations? What sort of reward are you looking for? And why are you doing what you're doing? What's the motivation? Kind of had a conversation about that with a friend today. So that's key. I think for now, as far as this podcast goes, as long as it continues to be a soapbox on which I can stand and shout my message, and I don't know if it matters too much who's listening or who isn't. It's just something that's kind of enjoyable and fun for me to do. On that note, though, I probably will alter the publishing schedule. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. Maybe it'll be bi-weekly. Maybe it'll be monthly. I don't think we need to aspire to huge numbers of episodes here. Last year, at one point, I was publishing 5 a week, I think. I have enough content to continue to do that if I really wanted to. I could show you more of the journey. I just really didn't want it to become this Facebook sob story thing, which apparently some people felt it was, and that wasn't my intention at all. It was a documentation of the journey, including all the low points and all the BS I was putting up with. But he rallies, and the podcast will continue. I don't know exactly in what capacity. I've also started thinking about, because I created another event for Spark Infinity, like we needed more of them, called Spark Infinity Pulse. Like as long as I'm doing Pulse, where I cover various headlines in the creative industry and offer free trainings and cover products and things I'd like to review or talk about, I might just feed that into the show as well. And if I do that, and I don't even know how many times a month I'm planning to do Pulse at this point. I guess I'm kind of defaulting to once per month. But if I end up doing that more frequently, I might feed in that content over here too. I think it would make sense. So I've kind of just rambled on about updates, but I wanted to get to today's subject of this episode, which is basically meaning versus fulfillment. I find this whole conversation about meaning to be very problematic. I kind of see it as a sand trap or an infinite loop-de-loop or an infinite traffic circle from which there's no escape. Meaning in itself is inevitable. And what I mean by that is meaning happens automatically, whether you choose it or not. And oftentimes and sometimes you're not choosing it at all. Meaning is happening. And from the moment you begin to understand language and life starts to happen around you. Because as a child, as a baby, as a toddler, as a young one, you're not really in control of everything around you. You have the parents you have the siblings you have, you are born into a family. And that's already a miracle of sorts because not every sperm is born, is it? The miracle of life is sometimes underappreciated, but I think that's a whole other discussion that we don't really need to get into here. But things happen, and there's always something in childhood for virtually everyone, oftentimes defined as trauma. Not everyone identifies it as trauma, and that's fine. It could simply be something difficult. And you may even say, I had an otherwise normal or ordinary childhood or trouble-free childhood. And that may even well be true, but maybe that one time you were corrected by a parent. Maybe you heard your parents shouting at each other and arguing with each other. It could be the smallest of things but you're a new being. You're just beginning to understand this place. You don't even understand most things as you're developing when you're a child. And those moments can become trauma. It becomes deeply embedded. And there was meaning attached to it. There was absolutely meaning attached to that moment. Was it good meaning? If we were to use the language of good or bad, did you ascribe the specific type of meaning that you wanted to in that moment? No, it was automatic. Now, again, good or bad meaning, I can't tell you. And I don't know if we can simply qualify it as being good or bad, but was there meaning in that moment? Did you make it mean something? I assure you, you did. And that was something that happened automatically without any outside help. And so we go through life adding meaning to things. To a degree, it continues to remain automatic, but now you have a choice as you grow into young adult and beyond. Now you can choose the meanings you attach to things. Now, that can actually be an empowering thing, but predominantly, and I don't know all the reasons, I don't know all the biology, I just understand from research I've done on my own that human beings by default are negative. That's our wiring. And to be anything other than that by default, we would have to be very intentional about the input, the things we consume, the things we regularly expose ourselves to. That's why I'm such a big believer in reading and listening to audios in my car and all that kind of stuff. Those habits make a tremendous amount of difference. Shutting the TV off, shutting Netflix off. I engage in the occasional entertainment just like anybody else. But I think if we were to compare, and it's not about comparison, but if we were to compare notes, I think I'd be watching considerably fewer things than many of you are. All that to say, we frequently hear, and I continue to hear in various videos, in podcast episodes, in books, that the point of life is to find meaning. Again, if we go back to what I've shared about earlier, and this is absolutely coming from my training, and I understand this will be a hot take for anyone listening, probably, but meaning is automatic. This is why it's so problematic, because people are talking about going and finding meaning. What happens when you go and find meaning? Well, you can create it. And again, that can be an empowering thing when you make things mean what you want them to mean, or they create an empowering context for you. That can actually be tremendously useful, but predominantly, that's not what I find human beings do. They go through life and then they have breakups and they make a meaning about that. Then they get into a car accident and they make a meaning about that. And then their fridge breaks down when they buy their new home and they make meaning about that. And so when you're really paying attention to what I'm saying, all those events, again, if we were to put it into positive, negative language, those were quote unquote negative events. So it's so funny that people are saying, go and find meaning. You've already attached meaning to all those events. And let's just put it like it is, predominantly negative or events that weren't specifically enjoyable to you. Finding meaning is not empowering. It's like finding passion. It suggests and implies, and I would say pretty overtly suggests and implies that it can be found and it's supposed to be found. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to experimentation. I'm not opposed to trying many different things to see what you like and see what you enjoy, explore your natural giftings. All that kind of stuff, I think, leads you in a good direction. But I don't know how much I buy into this whole idea of finding a passion. You have to become passionate about something and continue to show up and do it, because whatever you do consistently becomes your identity. So for me, learning to play the guitar and showing up to practice, the daily discipline of that made me increasingly passionate about the instrument. However, I was already starting to become passionate, like very passionate about the idea of playing guitar before I started learning a single note. Don't try to find passion. Become passionate about something. And it can start with the simple seeds of curiosity. I just saw this on TV. I wonder what that's about. You begin reading about it and you're like, maybe I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. So you read a few more articles, and then you listen to some podcast episodes. Then you watch some videos, and then you go to the store to look at some products, or maybe you buy a magazine subscription to whatever that passion is. And before you know it, you are practicing that very thing, or you're becoming better at it. Or if the passion is like a hobby, you're buying up a bunch of stuff that you want to collect. Whatever the case might be, by becoming passionate about it first, you ensure that there is actually a passion to pursue. But finding your passion, that can be elusive. And you can repeat that process for as long as you live and not necessarily find it. Again, experimentation is good, going after those seeds of curiosity. But going through life, finding your passion sort of implies that you're never going to find it, or you're just going to keep trying to find something that isn't necessarily there, or continue to become dissatisfied with the things that already were identified as passions. So finding meaning is a lot like that. It suggests that you'll actually never arrive in finding meaning. Like you can go through life, all of it, chasing something, trying to go after it, trying to get it, arrive at this goal. But, the funny thing about goals is they're not very effective unless you know what you're aiming for. If you're like supposed to run a 100-meter dash, but you don't know which direction to run in, you can't reach the goal no matter how hard or how fast you run. At the very least, your odds are not very good. If you're running in the complete opposite direction, you're virtually guaranteed never to get there. If you're running haphazardly all around the place without really seeing the goal, even if you get there, it's going to take you a really long time. So finding meaning is a blind pursuit without a specific goal. And without that goal being measurable in some way, shape, or form, what is the point of finding meaning? Can anybody describe that? I think it is potentially a problem with language, because I think when people say finding meaning, they mean something else. Because meaning is automatic. It happens without your cooperation. Can you create meaning? Yes. Do you always make meanings that are positive or helpful or empowering? No. I think when people say finding meaning, what they're really suggesting is finding a purpose in life, or pursuing a purpose would be better for reasons that we've already explored. And I can tell you right now, a purpose is going to be created. It has to be created. It's not just going to hit you over the head one day out of nowhere. I don't think the odds of that are very good. Or what people are meaning when they say finding meaning, they mean what makes life worth living. And to me, that's a better definition of ikigai than most of what's out there. And the Venn diagram about ikigai is totally wrong. That's not ikigai at all. It's what I just described, what makes life worth living. That's not such a high bar to hit. Finding meaning is not even defined. What does that even mean? Finding meaning, what does that mean? But most people don't think about this and think that life, once you've figured yourself out, once you've figured out personal development, once you know what you're supposed to do in this world, once you've served your purpose, then it's about finding meaning. What does that mean? It means nothing. You got to create this somehow, some way. You know what's an easier bar to hit? You know what makes more sense to me? Fulfillment. I can point to so many moments, and it's not like I remember all of them off the top of my head, but I could point you to so many moments in my life when I was writing an article and say, I'm totally fulfilled. I'm writing a paragraph in my book or editing it, and I'm totally fulfilled. I'm playing something on the guitar, and I feel fulfilled. Or I get promoted at my big tech contract, and I feel fulfilled. Fulfillment is an easy mark to hit. It doesn't happen all the time, but holy cow, it sure happens more frequently than finding meaning. Gee, you've spent your whole life with meaning. And where did that get you? Did that serve you? Was that positive? Has that meaning really helped you move towards what you want in life, or has it held you back? Because so often the meanings that we attach to things, and oftentimes automatically without thinking, is negative, holds you back, keeps you apart from the things that you want. An easier bar to hit, a bar that I can hit, like if I really wanted to, several times a week, maybe even several times a day. I've never tried that, but I think I can hit fulfillment several times a week. I go and find my favorite bubble tea and I feel fulfilled. I go and hang out with my best friend and I feel fulfilled. Fulfillment is a much easier marker to hit. Are you still chasing meaning in life? Let me know how that's going. I think I know. I could be wrong, but I think I know. Try fulfillment. Try being fulfilled. Seek fulfillment. Fulfillment is a bar you can hit frequently, and it brings a joy to life. Unlock the secrets to skyrocketing your productivity, boosting performance, and maximizing profits with my latest premium guide, the Productivity, Performance, and Profits Black Book. Tailored for independent artists and entrepreneurs, this comprehensive resource is your roadmap to turning ideas into reality. Say goodbye to abandoned projects collecting dust on your shelves or buried in your hard drives. It's time to bring your vision to life. Grab your free copy of the Productivity, Performance, and Profits Black Book now at davidandrewweeb.com/blackbook. That's WIEBE. Don't miss out on the key to unlocking your success.